Welcome to a new episode from Uncensored Show as part of the Mystic-Skeptic radio family of programs. We are starting the new season 9 at Radio Free Nashville, and we are discussing an important topic. We know that there's been a lot of debate over can we survive the next couple of years with all the stuff going on, but we have new parties rising and different things coming up. So what we're discussing today is how political commentator and comedian Jimmy Dore had Dr. Cornell West, who has been a big, I'm a big fan of his. He's someone who consistently has advocated for the rights of people and who has really good record on being an example to follow. And during this interview broadcast 2 weeks ago, Dore and him focused on the difference between addressing human dignity and human rights as compared to the core economic issues and how we need to organize people around class lines. What Dore mostly missed was the legacy of Dr. West, which for me, he's a moral authority, something that we haven't seen since MLK. And this very hostile interview was a critique of Dr. West's run for presidency through the third party. And he discussed a lot of the issues with the current administration, which somehow were dismissed. And it was all about how incrementalism, which what West was being accused of, is what's going to ruin his campaign and not bring the results that we want. So we have a guest today, Loyd McNeil. He's a grassroots organizer supporting the Green Party and Dr. West's presidential campaign, and he lives in Arizona. Can you tell us about what made you support him and the Green Party, if you have been a supporter of the Green Party throughout the years, and what makes the Green Party and his presidency a special and something that you would get behind?
Okay. Are you able to hear me? You cut out a couple times in yours. I don't know if my reception's not that great, but yeah, actually, so in 2008, 2009, after Obama got elected, I kind of dropped out of the system. Like, I was extremely politically active and just was, disillusioned after that. I saw Obama as just a continuation of George W. Bush's policies and realized that the nature of the system was nothing that I really could spend my life and energy fighting. But now I have a daughter, and just decided that I should, do my best to make a positive impact on the world. So I'm back at it again, and trying to rally people with grassroots organization, which is really what we need. I don't know if people are kind of aware of the stranglehold that duopoly and corporations have on our public discourse and our political system. I mean, they seem pretty aware of it, or pretty resigned to the idea that we are going to end up with Trump or Biden, which is the narrative we've been fed. So my support for Dr. West is he is the only option at this point. I do agree and support his platform. That's on the left, it's pretty across the board what everybody's looking for. The big changes that we want to get control of our political system back. We want to get control of our economy back. We want to stop the movement towards the white nationalist agenda. People see fascism, but my point of view on that is that that's a part of the duopoly's fear mongering. Is they keep that propped up as a threat, so that you are left to choose the lesser of two evils in many cases.
The issue with Dore, and I've been a fan of him since the beginning of the pandemic, is that although he's poignant and although he was a hero for questioning what's going on in the government, he's kind of like in the Joe Rogan style of always being in the opposition. And when you're dealing with extreme progressives, they feel that their tactics are the only tactics that are going to work, and then they come really hard on everybody else. I have a lot of things to say about Dore and the way he goes about addressing Dr. West. How was your perspective, Loyd, listening to that interview? And did you feel like he kind of ganged up on Dr. West? And is Dr. West being too kind like he usually does, and that's working against him.
Oops, you muted yourself. Oh, you wanted me to go ahead and continue from that point. Well, what I saw in that interview was two men that just were not seeing each other and not connecting. I don't think Jimmy Dore is a bad actor. You know, if he has an audience, he's definitely talking to his audience. But I think what a lot of people are missing with that is that a lot of his audience comes from the right. They come from a different starting point, and he's trying to bring them to the left, to where we're at. So you don't begin a conversation always at the same point with everybody. You know, there's the different backgrounds and what they got to go into. So he's pitching to his audience, and you know, his initial you know, just starting the interview with it, I'm here to coach you and help you. Depending on who you're talking to, I mean, that could be taken as, you know, he's trying to support. But a lot of the you know, West viewers saw that as being a, you know, that's an insulting thing to say to the man. You know, you're not seeing the guy, you're not recognizing who he is and his authority and what his background is. So a lot of people saw him as Jimmy Dore as being disrespectful. I was just seeing it as Jimmy Dore was really trying to contribute what he actually was very straightforward about saying, the things that he brought up with, you know, what would appeal to his audience if West could address those issues and come to a point of agreement on that. And that's, you know, the communication fell apart at some point. Dore's big thing was to go ahead and, for his audience, condemning Biden was a big issue. You know, putting him down was a big issue. And so he wanted to just go ahead and, you know, have West, you know, just put Biden down. And that seems to be an agreeable thing. He's an opponent. He, you know, I personally felt that, like, you know, West is running against Biden. He should not be saying things in support of what he's done. And then what I saw West do was come back and get into the minutia of the difference between the neoliberal type totalitarianism that we have going on and the white national fascist type totalitarianism that Trump represents. And he was trying to make a distinguishment between those two, which you can distinguish between those two types of governance and leadership. But it turned into a mess because that was not what Jimmy's point was going for. Jimmy just wanted to make West seem more appealing to his audience and his viewers. That's what I saw happening. So I saw a very unfortunate kind of miscommunication. Felt like if they had actually rehearsed that a little bit behind the scenes so that they had some clear understanding of what their end game was going into it, that interview could have gone a lot smoother. A lot of people made those comments too. I'm not original in making that statement. That, you know, that's what's been saying. If you watch some of the people on the Revolutionary Black Network, they've pretty much covered, like, you know, all of those the points I think that were trying to be made by Dore, and reiterating them and trying to communicate those a little bit better. Instead of what happened was people got more polarized and divided. So you've got a lot of people now looking at Jimmy Dore like he's an enemy. And I never really was watching that man's show before. That was the first episode that I saw of it. And my impression is that he's actually trying to be progressive in what he's, you know, pitching to people, and he's not being a spokesman for one of the you know, for the corporations, for what the existing oligarchy has for us. So
yeah, but there's a difference between being someone that challenges even the existing people who are out there. Like, you know, he has issues with Howie Hawkins, he has issues with Jill Stein, he has issues with now Dr. Cornell West. And what I always say about comedians is that what have they done for humanity? And I know Jimmy has organized around different things as compared to Bill Maher and other people, so he's actually more politically active. But the biggest problem is that although we address militarism, racism, fascism, and the medical freedom movement in the Dore interview of West, it was this pinning human rights against what Dore considers to be the existential issues of the day. So to portray Dr. West as the typical liberal, you know, black activist, that all he wants to do is what the conservatives would say race bait, or make it all about identity politics, that was very unfair. When you think about trying to get the libertarians, the extreme leftists, and the conservatives on board for a general election, I can see what Dore is saying, that you have to talk about things that affect everyone. But this accusation of alienating groups of people has also to do with who are we trying to build up to pick a new president. So I know people say that West might have a lot of appeal with the African American community because he himself is African American. He might have a lot of appeal with the poor because he's been involved in the Poor People's Campaign. He might have a lot of appeal with women and LGBT community and people who are pro rights for the Palestinians and other Middle Easterns. So he has a huge base that he can tap into, but Dore wants to make him tap into groups who have not been consistent and who have not been standing up for things that true progressives care about. So do you think that it's all going to work against West, that he doesn't have the ability to spread his message across, or that Dore is being kind of duplicitous when he's trying to dismiss issues that are very important and just focus on economic issues, which are affecting all of us, but don't always address the other things that are also very important?
I think, that's what I mean. I think it was a train wreck of an interview. Honestly, I think that was definitely something they should have spoken about before. What I saw was that the conversation got into, instead of moving forward on the points that mattered that we could have agreed on, they ended up disagreeing on their disagreements came up, and there was too much. I think there's too much at stake for us to be arguing among ourselves about those level of disagreements. And Dore was definitely going ahead and trying to just get West to speak a message that for his audience. And I think West has a message for his audience. I think it really got muddled in that. So where it started becoming a discussion about identity politics versus class issues, that conversation wasn't necessary. Like, West could have gone on there and just spent his time focusing on talking about class issues as the big thing. And that would have been what appealed to the audience. There's no reason for, not to say he doesn't need to speak on the issues of race and identity issues that go on. That is not necessarily what you need to lead with when you speak to that demographic. And that's, being politically savvy, I suppose you would say. So I was a little concerned when I saw, West wasn't acting like a politician in a space where that's really what we need is, someone that's, just that level of statesman ability and speaks is politically aware of the audience and how to craft a message for that audience. And yeah, that's pretty much it, is that, there's, a time and place to go ahead and address each of the issues. If you've ever, for example, if I wanted to just change the topic of this conversation and move on to discussing what my own issues were, what I wanted to talk about, that would be, inappropriate. And that's, it's the same sort of level of respect that it is required for everybody when you go into a situation, is to recognize what the audience is, who you're talking to, and speak to them, and not just speak about what you find to be most important. So I have a little bit of criticism about, Dr. West going into that. I hope he does improve, because if you think West was throwing him hardball questions and, twisting things around, I think he was being genuine in what he was trying to do. But if West is going to continue with his campaign, he is going to end up on shows where they are going to be baiting him into quite a few different, scenarios like that, to get him to argue, to get him aggravated and flustered, and arguing a point that is, that they will just go ahead and keep countering back and forth and undermine his appearance. And that's what I saw happening, is Dore wanted to just go ahead and keep it to can you just say that this is what your big issue is, your platform addresses this, we have an issue with these class issues, can we just move forward that you are going to go ahead and address those, make those the important thing. And that's not what happened. We saw a wreck with that.
So we were talking about how when Dore goes on Tucker Carlson, he is hanging out with racist and anti-immigrant forces, and he's trying to influence them to become more open and anti-establishment. So then when West was hanging out with Democrats, and he was trying to push them to be more compassionate and less militaristic or whatever they were doing, that is not allowed. So why is it that they're willing to give Dore the benefit of the doubt and the opportunity to do that? And then when West was doing that before he became a candidate for the Green Party, that was now being used against him by some of the leftist pundits.
Yeah, like that's the thing, is that we're talking about, when you say they, it's the pundits, and like what they do is propaganda. So they will twist whatever they want to, one day to the left, one day to the right. It doesn't matter. If you've been watching what the television pundits do, especially on Fox News, they can say one thing one day, come back and completely, say the opposite the next day, and they just move forward like this. And it's what the American people are fed. So yeah, that's our propaganda machine at work. What we need, and then if you want to get into it too, is on those platforms. So for example, if you wanted to host someone from the other end of the political spectrum, or I think actually you were talking about this, I caught a little glimpse of yours. If you wanted to have Hillary Clinton on your program, for example, in order to have her on your program, you're going to be given a list of things you can't talk about. Is that basically how you see it? Like they're going to want to control the frame of the conversation. They're going to want to control it, and they will tell you what is on the table to discuss and what isn't if you have a certain person on. The other way that it works is if you are Dr. West, or some supporter, somebody we advocate for, and you go into one of these Shark Tank pundit interviews, they will do everything they can to make sure that they control the narrative that you're able to say. So they will cut you off, they will interrupt you, they will talk over you, they will edit things that you say out of the conversation. They will give you such a short amount of time that you can't answer questions, and then they will ask you questions that leave you set for that. So they do everything and they can to control our narrative and how we have our public discussion. And I think that is kind of what we really have to fix first, David. And that's why I think your program and other people that get on and have these podcasts, that we're doing genuine interviews, really trying to get the information together. That's actually where we need to start at. We need to unite the people that are trying to get a voice out there together, to go ahead and start amplifying that voice, and being able to take over what corporations and the media are feeding us constantly. That's why we don't believe that anybody but Biden or Trump will get elected, is because most people are getting their information from these media sources, and they believe it wholeheartedly, and they're going along with the narrative, and how they think and how they operate is based on the propaganda that they're fed. It's very Orwellian, Brave New World kind of reality that we live in. I don't think our democracy has really been anything but a totalitarian, and like some people have used this expression, inverted totalitarianism, to describe what we have going on. But the corporations select the candidates, they're viable, they'll go ahead and allow those on the ballot. You are given an illusion of choice, and that is it. And many of us have started to grow sick of this illusion of choice and started to wake up that this is nonsense what's going on. And now we're looking at like kind of the overwhelming task of getting somebody like Dr. West elected. So my starting point is that I would like to see Dr. West elected. I would like to see the Green Party gain some standing, so that we can kind of move away from the duopoly. I think that's, in order to establish that, we really have to launch a campaign to get control of our social discourse and the narrative that we accept as a society. Is that?
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the mainstream media outlets. I'm talking about the progressive alternate media. So Dore keeps talking about Nick Cruz and his issues with West, and just like Dore, there are people who are saying, well, when we go on Fox News or Air America or whatever, and we say, you guys need to come join us, that they are doing the right thing. But when West has friendships with Democratic candidates or has been working with people throughout the years, that's going to count against him. And then also, when you have someone like Jimmy Dore not making issue with white supremacy or minimizing it and even making fun of it, isn't he enabling it by the way that he's saying, well, if West brings it up all the time, they're going to run you out. So why even bring it up when for him to be an Irish American telling an African American, don't talk about supremacism, seems to be a little condescending.
Yes. Yeah, that's, and like that definitely went that way in that conversation. Where I've gone ahead and pointed out that, like, Dr. West, like, that they didn't see each other, and I've pointed out some mistakes Dr. West made. I definitely think Jimmy took his argument, and instead of acknowledging Dr. West's point on the issue, he went ahead and continued to hammer home the relevancy of what he was trying to get done. And in doing so, I think he said some things that could definitely be taken as dismissive and not constructive for civil rights activists and what we've been trying to accomplish in terms of social justice and equality in this country, and downplaying some of those things. But that's also, like, if you who you are watching that, and that's where I'm trying to keep a balanced eye on this, is that it's not up to me. My opinion doesn't matter. What we have to be aware of is, like, how in the world can we influence the opinions of all of these people they're casting votes? How do we win a war that's in the battle of the minds of Americans that are not critically thinking, they're not trying to educate themselves, but at the same time they're being pushed in droves out to go ahead and vote for one of the for the corporate candidates. So I think that instead of trying to find point out, for example, in an inconstructive way of, like, if Dore is aligned with the wrong thing, I really do think he's trying that to work in the correct direction towards our goals, towards our collective goals. But as it goes with everybody, we are not in lockstep. We need to definitely clarify those things, and me to make the these judgments. It's I could do this, we could do this all day long, but how do we go ahead and come to some agreement as to what our what the leadership needs to go ahead and be doing, and understand that, and just to see those sorts of that mess that happened on that interview. It just it continues this sort of discussion right here, which is like a divisive discussion of, like, who was right and who was wrong, rather than, like, what is the direction that we're trying to go in, what values do we share, and what can we get done, what do we need to get done and unite. So I guess to put it back at you, what would you like to see done by these pundits? What message do you believe, what outcome do you see that needs to be stated from having watched the Dore West interview? Where's your stance on that?
Well, my stance is what I saw with the Bernie candidacy. I was hanging out with a lot of progressives in Tennessee, and they started doing the typical leftist purist test that unless you agreed with everything on every point, and they did that to Jill Stein, that you weren't good enough. But for the Democrats, they're willing to make all kinds of concessions just so Trump doesn't get elected. And then we get thrown under the bus because we voted third party and we were part of the problem. So what I see that Dore and Cruz are doing is the same thing with Dr. West, where they're saying we can come after Bernie, we can come after AOC for not keeping their promises, we can come after Biden. Would we expect you to not only do the same, but to go the extra mile and condemn everyone, and then have this purist test that if you don't stand against militarism, if you don't stand against fascism of all kinds, if you don't do all these things, you're not good enough for us, and you're not going to win, and we're not going to back you up. So they're creating this very close and limited criteria for supporting someone, and we're left with the same thing as always. We're left with the leftists cannot get their act together. and the same two parties stay in power. I think that West, by being able to not turn things against Biden, he's actually trying to gain Democratic support, because within the Democrats, there's a lot of people who are unhappy with the system, and they never wanted Biden to win. They wanted Bernie to win, but they had no choice, and Bernie kind of folded. So now for him to stay even killed and not being so forceful like someone like Dore would be, he's actually getting reasonable people to listen to him. Wouldn't you agree that it's better for West to stay cool and to, when they go low, go high, that if he starts going crazy like Dore and cursing at everyone and saying everybody is a fascist and making accusations, it only gonna feed into their own racism and their own dismissal of third parties and progressives?
Yeah, I think actually, like where you're going at is that no matter what we do, there'll be something wrong. There'll be the mainstream media, the group on the that's opposing us, and the mindset that they actually go ahead and get put into, which is what really kind of made me the sickest. It's not just the people at the top. They're so effective with their messaging and so effective with their brainwashing, with their propaganda, that just the people that you talk to on the street are convinced of those talking points, and they will just be hammering them home and repeating them to you and doing what you're talking about with, like, the leftist purity test. They themselves will be conducting this and have been trained to go ahead and think this way and operate this way. We have to kind of step above that and start seeing ourselves as unified. We don't have to all agree. That's the big thing. We need to go ahead and realize that us on the left, it's like herding cats. We're not going to have everybody get behind and do groupthink. That is not what can happen. We all want to have our own opinions and value our own opinions. And in order to do that, we have to be reasonable, and we have to engage in respectful dialogue and discussion. And that's where I stand on things. That's the thing I want to hammer home, is that we need to unite and get together to have a respectful discourse, and go ahead and have that dominate things and displace what the corporate duopoly is putting out there. And right now, one of the things I've done, because I couldn't stand just behind the Green Party or West. Like I was saying, I'm a supporter of those. So I've gone ahead and I've been working on creating something that I'm referring to as a public commons, a town hall, and a roundtable. So there's spaces where we can gather, and the only thing that will make it possible for this to happen is if we do engage in respectful discourse with each other and respect each other's points of view, and try and have constructive dialogue. So I've actually started those as Facebook groups. So if you want to look up public commons on Facebook, I've been trying to clarify and promote this idea a little bit more on that. So yeah, that's what I see we need to do, is instead of letting the duopoly, the messaging that gets put out there, cause divisions, and they will amplify something. So whatever happened on, when West and Dore have a falling out like that, that's terrible. That gets actually amplified throughout the system and causes even greater divisions, and we cannot afford those things to happen. So we need to get together and be able to construct the message behind the scenes and then send it out. We need to be focused on doing a marketing campaign, a PR campaign, to get to the rest of the people. And before we can get to that point, we have to get everybody that can contribute, that is thinking on our level, that are operating on our level, they're activists like we are. We need to get together and go ahead and agree on what that message can be, and do a coordinated push for that messaging, instead of this disorganized stuff that's going on right now. Like I said, if West and Dore had actually worked out their differences before they got on camera, I imagine that whole interview would have gone completely differently. And it's disappointing that that did not happen. So, and I see we're kind of cutting close on time. Would you like to continue this, or do we have to end after this meeting?
No, yeah. If you can click on the link after it kicks us out, we'll be able to do another 40 minutes. It's just
that would be great,
because it's the free one. It closed off, but before, in our last minute, I want to say this part. So one way to unite people is to fight against neo-fascism, and that's what West kept on saying, that we need to be vigilant and fearful of Trump and what Trump was trying to do. But Dore felt that Biden has a worse form of fascism, dealing with shutting down the union strike for the railroad, blowing up the pipeline in Europe, saber-rattling war against China and Russia, and supporting the proxy war started by NATO. So in the next side of the break, I want you to tell me, do you believe that Joe Biden is a neo-fascist, yes or no? And how is that important as we try to push Dr. West forward?
So is Biden a fascist or not? Yeah, Biden, the use of language, the isms, it, depending on what your definition of fascism is. If you go back to the Mussolini, that it's corporatism, yeah, that's exactly right. They're both, everything's fascist right now. I think since 2001, you want to call it inverted totalitarianism, you want to call it fascism, you want to call it neoliberal fascism. It's corporations control this country. They control much of the globe too, through our empire. They exhibit all the fascist characteristics that people like to talk about, the militarism. We have a bigger military than anybody else combined. And we have a police state. We have more people in prison. We spend more money on police than any other country. Actually, I think I saw a stat the other day that New York City alone spends more money on their police than most countries in the world spend on their military. So if your view of fascism is that it's as bad as it gets, that it's not going to get any worse than this, yes, that we are definitely in a fascist system, and the only thing that's going to change are the window dressings. If you want to have the appearance of the blue color or the red color of it, it's just window dressings at this point, because they really don't change policy that much. They change what they're saying when they get in office. They pump up a different group of people, but they actually don't change anything fundamentally different between the two of them. I mean, for everybody that was so worried about what Trump would do when he was in office, and he did push, he did push our social discourse about social justice way in the wrong direction. There's no argument about that. But that's because he had the pulpit. When you look at what he actually did in terms of bombing other countries, and even like when they're talking about deporting people, the Democrats are deporting more people than Trump was doing. The cages that he was using to put the kids in that we saw those wonderful pictures of, Obama built those cages. I've been down and actually visited that situation too, and it's just an economic venture down there. But yeah, depending on what window dressing you want, one could possibly be seen as worse than the other. But what we end up getting year after year is the exact same sort of stuff, regardless of whether you vote red or blue. And so far, from what I've seen, the red hasn't been as drastically worse than what the blue has been. And so that's why I think we need to quit, discussing which party is better or worse, the Democrats or the Republicans, because they're working hand in hand to make us have this silly conversation about which of them we prefer. And that's what we have to stop doing. So, and I have to say, like, I was agreeing with Dore when he was just saying, like, you just, when Dore said you're not doing anything to benefit yourself, or however he phrased it, at the halfway point in the interview when it really fell apart, he said, this is not good for you. I had to sit there and agree. I'm like, this is a conversation you should not be in. You know what I mean? An argument you just shouldn't be getting into. It does not help you. It offers no benefit to clarify those points of which one of them is better or worse. That's my view. I mean, I think if we can get past that argument, we can move forward to saying, like, what do we want to be establishing? What do we need to do as the Green Party? Let's move away from the other two colors.
There was a recent survey that said that 70% of Americans are Democratic or Democratic leaning. And if that is the case, West does have to be a little more capable of expressing his unhappiness with the current administration. But if he goes too far, he might lose them. So I want to go through the definition of fascism for our audience. So the common definition is a mass political movement that emphasizes extreme nationalism, militarism, and the supremacy of both the nation and the single powerful leader over the individual citizen. So what West was saying is that by Trump impeding the transfer of power, eliminating his enemies, either by firing them or coming after them, scapegoating minorities, he was the biggest threat to democracy that we have seen in a while. Of course, we have, like Dore said, that there's militarism in the Democratic Party, there's censorship, there's manipulating the public through the mass media, and stuff like that. So the levels is what West was willing to contend, that one was extreme and the other one is, you know, I don't think it's tolerable because, like you said, it's causing a lot of harm to our country, but that that's why West would say there's fascistic elements versus calling out Biden full out fascist. Do you think that people are smart enough to be able to tell the difference, or do we need to hit them with a hammer to realize they're all fascists, they're all evil, we need to take them down?
Yeah, I think your hammer's right. We have to go ahead and have a craft a message that goes ahead and just exposes the fact that what they're arguing about, the differences between the two, it's a minor deal. Have you ever watched somebody that is just focused on the wrong thing? I'm sure there's got to be some meme out there that expresses that, focused on some detail that is completely missing the point of the big picture. And that it's a threat. Like that's what they've got to keep going on. Like in order to keep the duopoly going, each side, they have to divide the people, and they have to make it so that one side fears the other side getting in power. And then they got to keep it's amazing how many of our elections are 51% to 49%. They got to keep you thinking the game is close. And what I'm telling you is, like, I don't even know if this is reality. I mean, they control like the polls, they count the votes, they're telling us all of this information. This is a narrative that the corporate media and the government is feeding us. So how much of it do we really want to say is based on fact versus them just shaping what we're seeing? So yeah, like they've got to keep it so Trump looks like he's going to be, the threat. In fact, like how, January 6th, like was, like what's, that got completely played into duopoly's favor. What happened after January 6th? They came out with a bunch of laws to crack down on protesters around the country. I don't know if people know that, but for as mad as everybody is, like, get those January 6th guys, throw them in jail, lock them up and throw away the key. So what they're doing is they're creating precedent. So now they can do it to other protesters. And now let's move down to Atlanta, Georgia with Cop City. Where they've rounded up, I don't know how many protesters, they've got dozens of them, and they're prosecuting them under the same sort of laws, and under RICO cases, the same exact grand jury, I guess, that is going after Trump right now is the same grand jury that is being used to prosecute the Cop City protesters, environmental protesters being called terrorists in this country. And they're going to get locked up in jail. And while we cheer, a 22-year sentence for a man that promoted, the January 6th event, I guess he wasn't even there. 22 years for, promoting an uprising. Do you not see that you can hate the guy for what he was doing? But what they've got in a legal sense is you're promoting and you're raising awareness for this, and you are the bad guy for being the spokesman for this group of people and getting them incited. Now we move over to a group of people that want to go ahead and protest abortion rights. And then we got a couple of people that they can put in there that incite violence in a crowd, make it look like a riot took place. Then now they can go after the organizers for that rally. And they're going to use the same laws and the same precedents that we're cheering for going after the January 6th guys. And this is how the duopoly plays everybody. And to me, it's maddening. Like it's haven't you watched Star Wars? Don't you see how the whole Emperor Palpatine getting into power situation works? How fascism evolves? They have to go ahead and get you mad at an enemy. So the duopoly works great because they go ahead and can keep half the country mad at the other half all the time for what they're doing. And we'll never get out of it if we keep getting baited into the game that's getting played on us.
So one thing that was brought up is and what the real issue that I saw was a problem between the mass appeal of a political candidate and the idealism of Dr. West. So Dore's tactic that he proposed was to organize around class lines. He feels that if we organize around fighting white supremacists, fighting white supremacism is too divisive. So I feel the same way, since white supremacy and racism have been overused to the point of rendering them the terms meaningless. So identity politics is also a losing battle, as a large part of the population is religious and traditionalist. However, the class struggle does not address police brutality or this disproportionate